Ladies and gentlemen, it's Sunday Live number 212. I didn't know that was going to become a blues, but then it did. What's happening? How's everybody doing out there? Everybody all right out there in the world? What's shaking? I wish my lights were brighter in the back. I'm going to do that real quick. Because everything's on an app now, isn't it? Isn't it? So you go on the phone, then you go like this, and then I can see, watch this. See them changing back there? It's not really making much difference, is it? Let's change the color altogether. Ooh, blue. How about that color? How about, whoa, that's different. How about red? Should we go red today? Let's just go red. How about that? Who's here? We got Jesse, we got Leo, we got Fareed, we got Jordan. And yeah, fancy, exactly, says Paul. Fancy. That's exactly it. There, see? Fancy. What happened this week? I did a video for, I think this was this week, not last week that I did this. This guy with the sliders. This was fun. Blues breaker based overdrive, like the old Marshall Blues Breaker pedal, which always sounded great. Those are some of the best sounding new designs. The Blues Breaker, the Governor, the Shredmaster, I think it was called, that came out in the 90s from Marshall, and was like, oh, these are actually like really legit sounding drives. And yeah. So anyway, it's actually really cool with the, I must say, with the sliders, like as far as being able to tune the tone and the mids and stuff. I don't know. It's just like something I liked about it compared to pots. I know it's not that much different, but it's neat. And it sounds good, like really good boosting a dirty amp and then also into a clean amp for your main sort of drive. So there's not that many pedals I found that do that. Most are good at one or the other. Yeah. That's a lot of red, says Ryan. It is. It's true. But we like red. What's wrong with red? Nothing. What else happened this week? Oh, of course, I just did the video on the tubes yesterday, real quick, because I got a hold of those Tube Amp Doctor red bass tubes, which are coming out of a newish factory in China. And the first thing that happened that was really nice was we put them in the amp, and they are a match for the old RFT Siemens tubes I had in there. I mean, exactly the same. Like they both, just heated up, and it was right on the nose around 31, 32 milliamps, which is where Dave sets it with my amp for whatever reason. I don't know why, but that's what he does. So that was cool. And then they are a perfect match too, like both tubes right about at 31. You rarely see that. Like usually one's off by 2 or 3 milliamps or whatever from the other one. And I guess anything within a kind of 5 milliamps is considered a match, something like that. Mustang Barry says, will you do a video on the new guitar you got? Now, that's not my guitar. It's just usually some misconception sometimes when things show up in my shop here, or whatever this is, shop, studio. It's a little bit of both, I guess. And sometimes people think that everything's mine that's here, but it's not. Most of the stuff that lives in here is, but I mean, like, like guitars will show up and stuff, and I'll just get a chance to check them out, and that's for various reasons. But a lot of it is just I don't know, blind luck, I guess. But it's pretty cool. Guitars, amplifiers, things come through. So it's nice, So anyway, it was a really cool guitar, and it was really interesting to play. So we can talk about the Randy Rhoads guitar for sure if you want to talk about that today. I found that really interesting, and I would like to make a video on it. Actually, it's got a really interesting history that I didn't really know until, after I'd played it and stuff, and the fella that dropped by with it had left. I went and, because the post starts blowing up and everybody's talking about it. I'm like, okay, I need to learn more about this guitar. So then I did. That's the honest truth. I didn't know that much about it when I played it. And then I found out it was really interesting. Stealth Parrot says, you had Dave Friedman check the bias for you. What do mere mortals like us do? Well, you go to your local amp tech and you have them check the bias. Any good amp tech will have usually a lot of them will have matchers like the Maxi Matcher or whatever, but they'll at least have bias probe. It's just a thing that goes in the socket and the tube goes in top of it. You saw Dave kind of do it in the video, and it looks at the milliamps or whatever that are going into the tube, and then just where to set it. So I don't know. Anyway, it's something that any amp tech will have. I know amp techs are probably fewer and farer between these days than they used to be, because it's just not as common as it used to be to see tube amps, I guess, which is a drag. But but you still have to bias if you're putting tubes in, unless your amp is a Mesa or something that they always had the kind of fixed bias, and you would buy tubes that just matched within their parameter or whatever. But most amps out there, including my PT15, PT100, etc., if you retube, you got to check the bias. You just do. Yeah, because tubes are all different. This was remember like the coating that Mesa Boogie used to use on the tubes, so to have the different color or groove tubes. They had their hardness rating or whatever, and if you got I believe if it was like I can't remember the numbers, 0 to 4, 4 to 7, 7 to 11 or something, the hardness rating. I guess if you kind of got a tube that was that was around the same number as what you'd had in the amp before, supposedly you could just kind of swap them. But generally speaking, you got to go to a tech. That's a long story short of it. Ever have an issue with microphonics from a pickup? Sure, all the time. A lot of old pickups weren't potted. I mean, the original DiMarzio Super Distortion I have here, for instance, isn't even potted. They must be a really early one, because I think they started potting them, not too long into the game. But old PAFs, T-tops, none of those pickups were potted. They were just, they weren't dropping them in wax and doing the whole potting thing. And also covers you should be aware that covers on pickups can create issues. Just the cover being around the pickup, and if it's not just right, a lot of times covers, they'll now kind of wax seal them or pot them to the pickup. So if you take the cover off, you might have to clean the wax off the pickup, because it'll meant to stop any vibration from the cover in the pickup, because the covers can create issues as well. So on pickups. Paul says the Scala is your guitar. Yes. Yeah, so the guitar that I used in the video is here. This is the guitar that I've had for many years, but it looks a little different now because this is a really awesome, beautiful guitar. Leo Scala came and picked it up. He's the builder. It's called an Underdog, and he makes gorgeous guitars that are. You can see, number one, I'll show you some interesting things about this guitar if folks haven't seen it. It has a vent in it here. See that? So the top is actually it's almost like a chamber. It's a chamber. And so there's air pumping in and out of that vent. It only goes halfway around the guitar. It goes all the way around to the strap button here. And so he called it a vented top. And so there's a little, long story short, a little bit of a semi-acoustic, semi-hollow thing going on to the guitar. Not like a 335 or something, but there's a chamber in there. And that's really cool. So Leo picked it up. It came with the pickups that were in it would have been Arcane. And these, since Leo built the guitar, he has started making his own pickups a few years ago, getting really into kind of the science of pickups. And so he wanted me to try his pickups. And so we were trying to figure out the look. And my buddy Richard Fortis had it done as well. He was the one that was actually raving about the pickups to me originally. He's like, have you tried these new pickups that Leo makes? And so I looked at pictures of Richard's guitar, and it basically is a complete exactly the same as this, because I copied him. So he said stop copying me, but I had to, because the look was so cool with the double creams and the pick guard. Now I'm gonna get Leo in trouble with the double cream thing, because there's a patent on that, but this is just a one-off, these pickups that he made for me, so he's not selling them like that, I don't think. Too late now. I already brought it up. But anyways, he put the pick guard on there as well, and it just looks really sharp. I think it's just a different look. It's like almost like getting a new guitar, you know. So kind of cool, but great sound. The pickups are definitely very clear and really cool. And what I like, they're not dissimilar to the Thornbucker set, you know, with a lot of clarity, like a big telly, you know, a lot of like that middle position, just really open Jimmy Page thing. That's what I dig. So. Pancake Astronaut says, would I be able to have my E34Ls in my DSL 100 replaced with EL34s? Yes. E34L is just a certain type of JJ EL34 with a slightly different design, but it's still an EL34 technically. So yeah, you can totally do that. And I know some folks that like those E34L tubes from JJ, and I know other folks that didn't. So you might like the tone, you know, if you try something like those red bass tubes or something, you might dig it. So Surfbee says, I'll trade you 2 tanks of gas for that guitar. No, because I drive an electric car. Sorry. But I know it is like that these days, isn't it? If you're buying gas. But I appreciate you, Surfbee. I do. Yeah, there is a patent on double cream. So DiMarzio, long-standing, old-school patent. Kind of a, you know, this is sort of a big debate in the pickup world for the last 50 years or so. Like, you know, it'd be nice if folks could make double creams, I think. I like Larry. He had a good talk on the phone a little while ago, actually. He's really cool. But I would be an advocate for like, hey, why don't you at least license it to other companies or something? To let other people make some double creams and they can pay you a $5 royalty or something, you know, per set, or I don't know, something. I think that would be cool. Because it would be nice for, you know, folks to be able to do that, I think. Yeah. What else we got here? Just looking through the chat. Roxall says, "Do you think I made a mistake buying Fry at 50 watt instead of 100 watt due to the 3 extras, including 2 channels and effect switcher?" Oh, do you mean? I have to decipher what you mean, and I think what you mean is the power station. The lower power, the PS2 versus the PS100. You're not talking about a Fryette amplifier. You're talking about the power station that has 2 channels and also has an effect loop you can switch in and out. Well, it depends whether those things would be useful to you. You know, the PS100. This is the, you know, it's a load reamp box that has 2 channels, and you can foot switch between them, 2 different volumes. I'll show you guys in case you haven't seen it, what it looks like, so you know what we're talking about. There's the 2 channels. So there's a volume control and a depth and presence for each channel, and then you can foot switch between them. So say you got an old Marshall, you could now have a solo boost, basically, not gain but level. You know, so you could boost via foot switch, and you can also patch in effects post the amplifier and get a, you know, delay or mod or something like that. So those things are nice, but if you're just wanting a great sounding transparent reduction in volume of your amplifier, and you don't necessarily need a way, like for example, the effects thing might not be necessary if you're primarily using it as a device to, say, record. So, you know, if you've got a cabinet that's at home and you're miking it up or something, you just want to lower the volume so it's not crazy, you can always add effects in your DAW if you're recording. If you're playing live, you know, it's kind of a nice thing to have the loop and be able to add effects, you know. So it's just if you think you could use those extra features, you know, how important those things are to you, I would say. Thank you. Hey, thank you. That's you're in the UK and your DWF tube. Thanks, man. Appreciate that. Jordan says, how do you like using your 1176 for your Plexi recordings? Can you speak about this? I don't really use it that much, to be honest. I have one here in the rack, and it's cool. I used it on, say, the Van Halen video because he supposedly ran through 1176s. So I had a regular old 1176 here, a silver front one, and then I had my newer 6176 mic pre 1176 patched in too for the second one. So, and it's neat. It does a certain something to the sound, I think, to have them in line, even if you're not compressing with them. Like there's a transformer in them and stuff, and it seems to be a cool analog kind of fat thing that they do. But I don't know if it's I generally am not playing through it, and there's great plugins now and stuff that can emulate if you like the compression. It's cool. I'm not as much of a purist as some people might. Like, I don't have like, I use a UA interface, and I don't run through, I don't use different clock or, different converters or anything. I like my UA interface, and it works great, and everything's just plugged right into it, and that's what I use, and if I use a compressor or something these days in the recording path, generally it's a plugin. It's just easier. And, I defer to folks like, Greg Wells, who's like an amazing producer, all kinds of stuff, One Republic and Adele and all kinds of people, and he's a new friend of mine, and he recently has been putting up posts saying, I'm just recording through my UA now using all the plug-in mic pre's and stuff, and I'm fine with it. I think it sounds great, and he's just like, mics straight into the interface, or through a patch bay straight into the interface, and not doing any kind of external hardware or anything like that. I think was the point of his posts. He's just using he's like, this is great, totally happy, sounds awesome. Not going to think about it anymore. I'm going to move on. So not to poo-poo it. 1176 is a cool thing to have around. I've got a bunch of, well, not a bunch, but, I've got a bunch of stuff sitting here that I just don't end up using that much. That's analog recording chain stuff. I still run through my APIs primarily as mic pre's on the way to the UA. I do that. So 2 API 312 style pre's for each of my mics on my cab in the other room. Line out of that into my patch bay, which is normaled into my UA interface for my main kind of signals. Thanks for the super chats, you guys. What do we got here? Thoughts on PT15IR and Quad Cortex, or PT15IR and Synergy Morgan plus 2CP and Line 6 Stomp XL. I'm not sure if I should get the 2CP or switch to Quad Cortex. Well, that's a lot. I mean, so you're thinking of using the PT15IR with like the Syn2 module or something so that you can switch in extra channels? It would be a pretty cool setup, actually. I mean, you'd have with the Morgan and then the 6v6 power section of the PT15 would probably sound really cool. For those that don't know, the Synergy is this preamp modules that you can slip into a chassis. And one of the things you can do with that chassis is you can use it in an amplifier effects loop and then effectively kind of add channels to your amp, which is a pretty cool thing to be able to do, I think. You can get some different sounds that way. Plus Line 6 Stomp XL. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. I mean, okay, so your Synergy version of these two rigs is a little more complicated, more stuff to bring, more stuff to plug in, I guess more stuff to go wrong, but pretty neat. That'd be pretty fun. Or the PT15IR on the Quad Cortex, just simpler, smaller. I don't know. If you really want the sounds of the Morgan is more voxy, right? You're making me think. I wonder what the Morgan would sound like into the PT15's kind of sweet 6v6 power amp. It might sound really cool, actually. Like maybe better than using a big power amp, with an amp like that. So I would have to try it, but I would have to try both to be able to give you an answer. But I think you're on to a pretty cool, pretty cool setup either way. One's just easier and one's, unique. Fareed says, great chat on Tone Talk yesterday. Yeah, I guess they had Adrian Vandenberg on. He seems like a good interview and a fun hang. Last week, John said he prefers strings through a block versus a hardtail. Has he told you why in detail? I think Probably just the sound of a Strat, something about a block. I mean, I don't want to speak for him, but I sort of equate, a Strat with the springs and the block. That's the Strat sound to me. There's something about that setup, a tremolo on a Strat is part of the sound. It kind of, it almost acts like I don't know, like the springs vibrating in the back of the whole. It's just like part of the sound. I don't know how else to describe it. Hardtail Strats can be cool too, but it's like maybe it's a more like that thing almost acts like a little. It's not a reverb chamber, but there's something about the, if you strum the springs in the back, you can hear it come through the pickups. So there's something to the sound of the block and the springs and the claw and the whole. Right? I don't know. It's an intangible, I guess, but it's maybe like more airy or something and less like a telly or something, less like of a, and I guess you could like it either way. But I also, if I play a Strat, I want the bar. I mean, it's just part of how I play, So I think that, it's just part of what I do with a Strat. Any thoughts on the differences between the non-fine tuner Floyd Rose and the walking Wilkinson? Well, so I have one guitar with the non-fine tuner Floyd, and it was cool, but the knife edges really had to be sharpened on the Floyd. It didn't right out of the box. It was like a little problematic. Sir did it for me, and so he had to go in with like probably a Dremel or something and do the knife edges on the Floyd. And so it had to be tweaked, and then it's a Floyd, so it's like different mounting and just kind of a bit of a and the sound of a Floyd is slightly different. So the Wilkinson to me just sounds like a 2-post Goto, but maybe better. Like this, whatever he's using for block and saddles and everything. I've put it on guitars and gone like, whoa, the tone is noticeably sort of more vibrant with this bridge. It's really cool. And then it's just, it's kind of for a lot of 2-post, if you've got a 510 or something, it's a bit more of a direct replacement. I like the look of the Wilkinson. It looks more like a standard Strat bridge. So there's a lot of things I like about it. It's not that I dislike Floyd's. I'm cool with it, but the, not having to cut the ball end, having a block that strings through all those things. I'm a bigger fan, I guess, of, for many reasons of the Wilkinson. So I definitely think I like the sound, and that's a big one for me is the tone. It just sounds really good. Even if you take those saddles and you replace the saddles on a 6-screw, Goto or Fender bridge or something. I've replaced like a Goto 510, the vintage saddles on my white Sir with the locking saddles from Wilkinson. And I noticed the guitar sounded better. I just thought it did. So right there, it's like, well, I don't know. There's a lot of reasons for me that I like it, yeah, but great question. The Floyd is cool too. It's its own thing. And if you're used to Floyd's, you might like the feel of, if you're like, well, I just, want to do a guitar with just a locking tuners and no lock nut, but I'm really used to Floyd's, then because it's a feel, the feel of the bar and the way it moves and stuff is a thing, and so it just depends what you're into. Some great questions today, by the way. Have you ever heard of Western Electric? I heard they're going to make tubes in the U.S. Well, they're exploring it. So they already make tubes in the U.S. This is a company, they're in the South somewhere. I think it's like South Carolina or something that they're set up. And I've known about them for a long time because I found it interesting that they make a 300B in the U.S., which is a hi-fi tube. But they haven't really produced anything else. But I've often thought like, well, these guys have a tube factory. They could probably make other tubes, right? Well, with the advent of everything going on in the world and everything, they put on their website this week, this Western Electric. It's pretty interesting. Go check it out. Search Western Electric tubes. You'll find their website. And you'll see there's a questionnaire on the front page of their website. They're saying, due to recent world events and stuff like that, we've come to realize that it might be beneficial for us to start making other kinds of tubes. And so what would you want to see us make? And, there's some check boxes there for 6L6s and 12AX7s and stuff. But then, you got a comment section where you can or sort of send them an email or whatever and add whatever else you'd like to see. So just the fact that they're exploring it, I think, is really great. They say they've got the capacity and the ways and the means to New Orleans to make other kinds of tubes. So besides the 300B. Now, the one caveat, they're very expensive. The 300Bs are $1,500 a pair. Now that's hi-fi prices. It's not uncommon to, the 300Bs and stuff. They're really expensive tubes anyways. But I mean, it would be interesting to see how it relates. I don't think guitar amp tubes would be that much, and they'll be making them, more at a scale, I would think, where if there's some interest, they can afford to, ramp up production, make more, which should drive the cost down a little bit. But I asked that question this week on the tube live stream that I did the other day, because I did another live stream this week just about this subject, about tubes and stuff. What would you be willing to pay? What's the maximum you'd pay for, say, a pair of EL34s made in the US? I think it's an interesting question. Some folks are like, and then other folks are like, $1,000. So everybody's different, yeah. Let's see here. Philip says, I got a Volvo S60 Polestar about 8 months ago, just in time for gas prices to go up. Efficiency varies widely with the use of the throttle. Pete's in the catbird seat these days. Is Polestar's a Volvo thing? I didn't know that. That's really interesting. They kind of look Volvo-ish. Like I had no clue that this is the same thing, Polestar and Volvo. I didn't realize that. It's an electric car company. Greg Wells got a Polestar as well recently. Yeah. It's interesting. What amp switcher do you recommend? I like the Amp Pete. I've had no issues with it. I've got the 88, whatever it is, 8 amps, 8 cabinets. That one. And you can use it with effects loops of amps. So that's the only one I've really had experience with, and it's been working great. So I can comment to that, but not others. I know like Tim Pierce uses a different one that he seems to really like. I think it's from Spain. Yeah. Rhett's here. What's up, man? Getting rid of my 1176 is the biggest gear regret I have. Yeah, they're cool. I mean, I have a 6176, which is the tube mic pre and 1176 combo in a 2-rack space thing, and it's cool. I always found the tube pre to be a little like low headroom and a bit dark as a DI for bass, because I would sometimes use it for bass, and then when I got my APIs and I switched to, I started trying to use the API as a DI for bass, and it was like, oh, it's so much clearer. So but so I don't really use the 6176 anymore that much, but it's sitting here and it's ready to go if I want to turn it on. I've had it for like 15 years. It's one of my kind of oldest pieces of studio gear since I put together a little home setup. Yeah, what else we got here? Let's see. Aspiring guitar tech here. Might get the job at a local shop that needs rebuilding. Guitar techs are few and far between these days, I find, that are good and stuff, and it's a noble pursuit if you enjoy that kind of thing. The world could use more good techs, I think. Yeah. Prince Westerberg is talking about Western Electric tubes. Reissue valves are the product of a decade of research. Seriously good for hi-fi. Yeah, I've heard nothing but good things. Seems they are serious players and stuff, not screwing around. Paul says, you and Vi and the APIs. I'll tell you where I got the API thing from, because I have BAEs here too, and they're really cool. Neve, 1073 style, 2 of those, and then 2 of the APIs. My friend John Fields, who's a great producer and engineer and mixer and stuff, when I was putting together studio stuff, he said, don't screw around, just get APIs. And he's a really direct guy. He's a kind of like a no BS kind of guy. He's like, just that's what you should get for guitar, especially. They're very fast, aggressive. I like the punchy. A Neve is like warm and got a little bit of a fuzzy thing when you drive them. That's cool. It's big and fat, can sound great for classic kind of tones. APIs are like, just really fast and punchy and clear, and so for rock like hard rock. They're pretty cool and maybe preferable to the Neve style pre's to me. Neve definitely has a big sound, lots of, they've got a real full bottom end, and when you drive them, they're a little bit warmer, fuzzier. It's just a different thing. It's a cool thing, but different thing. Oh, I missed a super chat. Somebody was mentioning, I think, thanks for turning me on to warm audio to the fuzz pedal. Sorry, I just missed. Oh, there it is. Christopher, the Foxy Tone quickly become my favorite fuzz. Yeah, I did a video for that a while ago. Fox Tone fuzz recreation. Definitely cool. Yeah. All right. What else we got here? Lauren says, there may come a time when you record someone else's vocals and others, and you'll be glad to have that gear. Yeah, I mean, but like I say, Greg Wells is like using the, just plugins. He's like, I'm doing sessions using the UA and just using the doing everything through the pre's and stuff. And this is a guy that, Adele. I mean, there's no other singer out there that's as, he's like he's really into vocals, is my point. So, there is a big part of me that just wonders, like, for the work that I do, like, do I need any outboard at all anymore these days? Because, it's like, I like streamlined work and getting things done. So I'm going to keep it. I mean, I'm not going to get rid of it. I've got my stereo pair of Neves, my stereo pair of APIs, and then one tube pre with the 6176. I should mention I've also got like my little 500 rack that's got a Maris 440 in it, which is really cool. Another API style pre, but with an effects loop for pedal effects. So if you want to put like an electro harmonics, pedal or something on your vocal, you can do that. And it's pretty neat, or on acoustic guitar. And I've also got a DBX pre up there that's pretty cool. This 560 and a warm audio API style that are in there. So I've got a bunch of, outboard I could use if I want to. I don't see any reason to get rid of it or anything like that. Not right now. Any chance of seeing PT15 as a plug-in Alliance plugin? We could, but to be honest, the PT15 is not really, at least in preamp form, that different than the PT100. So I don't know how different it would be, certainly on the overdrive side, you basically have the same overdrive sound. It's just married to a different power amp. So yes, it's different, but it might be neat to do another version. But the PT100 is a fantastic, it's just, I just feel like it might be sort of like in digital land, it might be sort of splitting hairs, because the PT15 isn't really, I mean, the clean channel is more Bella than the PT100, which is more like Fender. So that's different. But for folks plugging in and getting a direct sound and record, like, are they really going to care if we had a different, plug-in version? The 100 is just kind of, it's all in there, is my point, and probably covers most people's needs. And I really like both clean channels. I love the clean channel on the 100. So, how do you record playing a cranked amp but at room volume? Would you just use a speaker sim like the aux in studio? Well, that's the easiest thing to do, is use a load box like the Sur Reactive Load, the aux, the 2 notes captor, these boxes that you can plug into and then dial up some speaker simulation, and you basically got no cabinet, no volume. So that's an easy way to go. But another way to do it, you're saying at room volume. So like at a comfortable volume in a room, I take that as something like the Power Station. That's what I use, the Fryette Power Station. So it's a load and reamp. So it'll bring your amp all the way down to line level, and then it's got a tube power amp built in to reamp it back up. You can crank the snot out of your amp, get a great sound, or crank it up however much you want, get a great sound, and then bring the volume up just enough to where, the speakers are working a bit, and now you can mic it and not be at a deafening volume. So do you want to mic a cab? Is that really important to you? Or if it's not, then is it okay to just get a load box? That's the question to ask yourself. Something like the reactive load, the captor, the aux, or you want to record a cab, you go to something like the Power Station. and still use mics in a cabinet, but just at a lower volume. Can we talk about the old Line 6 pedals? Sure. The monitors like the DL4 and FM4, do you believe these are still relevant? They were really popular back in the day. I see Line 6 actually has a new version of the DL4. Did you see that this week out? Or last week? It's been out for a minute, but looks really similar, but kind of just an update. Yeah, they were really popular. I mean, everybody, now you see a lot of Strymons on boards, like, for the last 10 years, you've seen Big Skies, Timelines, and Mobiuses. Well, there was a time in the early 2000s when you saw the DL4 and the modulation one on everybody's board, that was what everybody used. And they just had a few presets in them, and you get your, mods and stuff that way. They were kind of a classic at this point, I think. Other Line 6 pedals that maybe don't get as talked about as much, and I think are really cool, are like the Echo Park. That's amazing sounding delay. One of Tim Pierce's main delays is the Line 6 Echo Park. He probably still has it on his board, I bet. It's got a great modulated kind of Memory Man thing. And then the Roto Machine was really good too. And I used to use the Roto Machine with Chris Cornell for the whole first year of touring with him. That was what I played Black Hole Sun with, the rotary sound on the Roto Machine. Sounded great. Worked really good. So they made some cool little boxes for sure. Yep. Paul says he has a DL4 and an MM4. Yeah. That was them. What else we got here? Let's see. I think I'm kind of far down in the chat because I'm seeing folks talking about the block versus, hardtail thing, but I definitely hear the springs resonate in my Strat. Yeah, it's part of the sound of a Strat to me, is that, like, what do you call it? It's not reverb or something, but there's an airiness to it that, with the design of the tremolo. So, yeah. Here's a check out the air guitar. Someone made a YouTube 99 of the tone of electric guitars, the pickups, components. I think that it's, I've brought this up before. We've had this discussion in the past, but if you watch a video of mine, search YouTube for, I did it for Vintage King. So you can search Vintage King, Sir, Classic S, Classic T, and maybe my name. You'll find a video that pops up where many years ago, probably 8 years ago, I compared a Sir Classic S that was an alder body with a maple neck, maple fingerboard to another one that is the exact same but has a rosewood fingerboard. Probably the most interesting comparison, though, is the T's. I did a Classic T that has a swamp ash body, maple neck, maple fingerboard, and directly compared it to one that has an alder body, maple neck, rosewood fingerboard. So the two different body woods, alder, swamp ash, for the T's. I play the exact same thing through them. And watch that video at some point when you get a chance and tell me you can't hear the difference between the two guitars. They're identical pickups, electronics, everything identical, except for the woods, the body woods. And if you were to listen to that and go, well, I can't hear any difference, then I'd say, well, maybe it doesn't matter to you then. If you listen to it and go, oh yeah, I can hear the difference. Well, that's the difference between the wood on the guitar. Some of these things, the more distortion you pile on, the less it probably matters. I don't know, like if you're using modelers or, lots of compression or different things could vary your results may vary basically. But watch that video and tell me you can't hear the difference. That's a fair amount of difference, I think. And it's exactly what you would think it would be. Spoiler alert, there's a difference. And the spoiler alert is that the alder T with the rosewood board has a more mid-range and just kind of a more even overall character, whereas the swamp ash has kind of a scooped, airy thing going on to it. And just, it's obvious to me. I don't know. I mean, when people, it's obvious. It's the same thing you hear when you play the guitars unamplified, just on their own through, no amp. So anyways, Yeah, what do I got going on here? It's modern vintage. Which clean and dirty custom audio Suramps was the PT100 based off of? We sort of started, but I think John started really with the Classic Plus, custom audio Classic Plus, which was a ZL34, fairly close to, Marshally for sure. And then he modded a Classic Plus. And that was where the first custom audio PT100 came from. Which two current Sir amps are the closest to it? Closest to what? Sorry, I'm confused. Closest to... Yeah, sorry, I don't understand that question. Closest to which? SL68 and Bella. Those are two very different amps. SL68 is a 68 sort of Van Halenized Marshall Plexi. The Bella is very, American clean platform. Will get dirty if you crank it, and a little bit of Dumble lineage going on there, I think. How is the SE100 versus SL68? I think the SE100 is pretty aggressively, modern. It's got probably, at least one extra gain stage somewhere in the preamp versus an SL68, which is much more vintage plexi. So SE100 would be more like John's, like a modern, grindy, when I say modern, I mean, kind of things that came about in the 90s, but yeah. Hopefully that helps. Hopefully that answers what you were sort of getting at. I hope so. Pete, that was cool. Can I say rig rundown since it's another channel that you did with the young guy in the UK? Yeah, thanks. Yeah, there's he was a young dude that was friend of our bass player, Wayne Banks, and he's got a YouTube channel, and he came out and did a kind of a rundown of my rig rundown of my rig for his channel. And he brought a nice little, mic recording setup and stuff. So I haven't actually watched the whole thing yet. I should watch it and check it out. But and I really have to get done our rundown rig thing that I need to make for. We filmed a thing over there where myself and James Cole show our rigs and guitars and things like that, and we go through everything. And so I need to get on that and get it edited and stuff. Sometimes I get. I don't know, like I get a block about getting a project done, and that's one that I really need to finish. So thanks for reminding me. How do match tube sets work? If one of the tubes fails, you have to replace both tubes at that point. Kind of, yeah, generally. Part of getting match tubes is hopefully they've burned them in properly. So, they've tested and matched means like they've put them on a, they've been, torture testing them a little bit and making sure that they're not going to, many times a tube will kind of run away within minutes, if it's got issues. So, putting them on a matcher and matching them and, sticking some voltage on them and stuff like that, and, burn in, that's part of like what, these, groove tubes and Tube Amp Doctor and these people are supposed to do when they match a set. And they're supposed to be somewhat weeded out, because many times when you get just raw tubes from whoever's manufacturing them or whatever, I say raw, like whatever, you know what I'm talking about. You get a bulk of them, a certain number of them are going to fail right out of the gate. And so by them matching them and burn in, that's what you want to kind of pay a little extra for that process. And then this should hopefully work for you, but they don't always. They might last a week and then there's a problem. But that's just part of tubes, and it always has been. So, part of what leads me to believe that this, Tube Amp Doctor Red Bass, the PS Vane tubes that I did the video on yesterday, that company is it was set up as a smaller kind of operation, and they make a lot of hi-fi stuff, not unlike Western Electric, where they're making hi-fi stuff, expensive tubes for hi-fi. It's started, I think, a little more audiophile, and that sort of, hopefully, in my mind, just logically thinking, would equate to quality, like, not just mass marketing, making super cheap tubes right out of the gate, more like making expensive tubes and selling them to audiophiles who are really picky. And so hopefully, hopefully this bodes well for the quality of the tubes. I mean, I tell you what, Tube Amp Doctor matched them like crazy. The ones I got yesterday and put in my amp, identical match, and they seem to sound great right out of the gate. So some people think that they need to burn in or something, and then they'll sound different. I don't know if there's truth to that. Maybe. Missed out on a 70s basket weave Marshall 412 with Celestion 55 hertz blackbacks. Oh, wow. That is a good deal. 100 pounds. That sucks, dude. Halfway into the drive. What a bummer. That's a cool cabinet for sure. 55 hertz blackbacks. Although I'll say my favorite's still the 75. I have one 55 hertz blackback, and you can try it in virtual form in my 2 Notes package. I think I kind of prefer the 75s no matter what. The 75s just when you play a 75 hertz greenback or blackback, it just sounds balanced and like there's rock guitar to me. All the other ones I'm always like trying to reach for EQ, move the mic a little. Everything's always messing around. A good blackback 75 hertz G12M just sounds like, yep, there it is. That's the sound I hear in my head. So see if you can find one of those. Do you do any EQ in your Plexer recordings? Pultec. Yeah, I mean, Pultec EQ is really Pultec. Just everything sounds better running through Pultec. So they sound bigger and just cool. Sometimes you can add a little low end, lop off ultra lows, and then do a little bit of a boost at 100 or something, just to put it at 2. And then the top end just sweep. You got your 3, 4, 5K. The different. On the frequency switch there. I'll grab that super chat there. I think it was John. Sorry, I just missed that. But anyways, a little bit of bottom end, top end, and just running through a Pultec does a really cool thing to the sound, I think. Other than that, I'll lop off. Like I say, I'll do below 80 or 100 hertz. Sometimes on solos 120 or something. You can pull up the high pass filter, so you just lopping off it just helps clean up your tracks. So that's EQ of a sort, Sometimes I'll add a little 2K on solos, which is the frequency that just upper mids that just makes it kind of cut. So if I'm finding I can't get enough definition on a lead guitar part without turning up really loud, and then it sounds like it's too loud, but I can't hear it clear enough, that's the EQ I'll add, is sometimes just around 2K. I'll just make it right through the mix. I've tried to be careful these days about adding a lot of top end to guitars. I just, I see sometimes like these great mixers, Chris Lord Alge or people, and they've got like 8K, just like they're boosting like a lot, and their mixes sound great, and they're on the radio and they sound cool. I'm always like, how do you do that? Because when I try and do that, it sounds like people already complain that I like stuff too bright. So I wonder sometimes, but anyways, thank you for doing that review of the Red Bass, says Brent. I was super impressed with them. Probably going to grab a few sets. Running JJ EL34 is my Plexi. Cool. I like JJ EL34s. They've got a great sound. They've got a kind of aggressive, once again, a bit of aggressive upper mid-range thing. And you can hear it actually in that video that I did with my 50-watt Marshall. The JJs have a bit more rock kind of character. Like, when I say that, just that like a bit more angry top end and upper mid character to them that's really cool. But the problem in the last few years was finding reliable sets because they started failing a lot, high failure rate. So hopefully they got that together. What's a decent alternative to the Chinese 12X7 for the PT15 IR? Can't seem to find a retailer. Well, I know that the PS Vane, like there's things happening with those tubes when it comes to 12AX7s. Like they already make one, but soon I think things will be, you'll have a nice quality option there. I would say if you can find some of the JJ E83CC like grab 1 or 2 of those for spares in the interim, because that's a really nice tube with a nice top end, has an expensive kind of sound to it. E83CC, not the ECC83, but the E83CC. If you can find 1 or 2 of those around. Yeah. And I got to grab that super chat that I missed. Josh was asking, when I track guitars, do I prefer API or Neve? It just depends, but generally API. I do like Neve pre's, but I was mentioning it earlier. They have a bit of a fatter and, when driven, slightly fuzzier quality to them, whereas the API is very fast and punchy and clear. And I like that, generally speaking, that character of an API. Same on snare drum. I love I mean, Neve's great on drums too, but like I like the fast thing with the APIs. They're really aggressive sounding to me. I like aggressive stuff, generally speaking. I like punch and fast, and I don't like too much, like especially from mic pre's and things. I'd rather get the warm tubey squish out of the amplifier, but then just get clarity and forwardness out of a mic pre. Some people, I guess, would like to get the warm tubey thing out of the mic pre. But if you get too much warm tubey, it ends up sounding like mud to me sometimes, or squish, so I guess with the recording chain, I'm a kind of a clarity guy. Like it's one thing that I've kind of moved a little bit away from ribbon mics on guitar amps. They sound great and they're really cool for some things, but I'm really liking the fast quality and the clarity of like my Audio-Technica 4050 mic these days on my guitar cabinet in the other room, because it just gives an overall picture of what the amp sounds like without a ton of coloration from the microphone. It just sounds like, yep, that's a very true sound, and it's fast. Whereas with a ribbon mic, I always find they're a little slower and a little more like diffuse, and it's got a great warmth to it and stuff. It can be really beautiful sounding, but it's just, I like that character of the condenser microphones. You'll see a lot of like AC/DC, I mean, a lot of the, they used U67s and 87s and stuff on guitars, I think, a lot on AC/DC stuff. And there's just that character, if you set the mic in the right position stuff, it just sounds like the cabinet. You know how AC/DC guitar tones are really like, they don't sound like 57s. It's like a very full, true sound. Like that sounds like kind of it's not being accentuated. It's like a 57 really puts its sonic stamp on the tone. It's got a thing, and it's great, and I love that too for its own thing. But it doesn't sound exactly like the speaker. Condenser mics are much flatter. I mean, you look at the pattern or the frequency plot on a 57. It's all over the place. It's doing its own thing to the sound. So, anyways, I digress. How many guitars do I own? I'm not actually really sure right now, to be honest. I definitely, an addiction, I guess so. Where was that super chat I missed? It was John, I do believe. Well, here's one from Steven. Using a cab amp with a Fender combo, I'm using a speaker cable extender with the stock speaker cable since it's not long enough. Is this ideal? Not ideal? I don't think it matters as long as they're quality cables and the coupler is good. You must be using a speaker cable extender. Like I assume you're using a 1/4-inch coupler with 2 speaker cables. That's fine. I wouldn't worry about it. It is one more place for things to fail, like get unplugged and then you got a problem, but as long as it's good stuff, don't worry about it. Use good thick speaker cable if you're running longer, runs. I've used 13 gauge, I think. It's kind of an odd gauge, but that's what I have running all the way out to my live room. It's a really long run. It's like 85 feet or something. Yeah. What earplugs do you recommend to go watch a concert? Eargasm. I haven't tried those, but they're supposed to be good. The only kind of compensated plugs I've ever had are the West Tones. And they were, I went to an audiologist, they poured the molds, and I got West Tones for about $100 with the different filters. I had 915 dB filters, and I've since lost them, so I should probably try and find them again. They're somewhere. I didn't throw them away. I just don't know where they are. I'll have to, you move and do things, and it's like I don't know where they are. But the West Tones work great. I would probably go that route. I mean, there's a lot of like the cheaper ones out there and stuff like that. But I would think, it's worth it. It's worth the trip to the audiologist, get your hearing checked, see what kind of shape your hearing's in, and they'll also pour the molds and then order the plugs for you. And any good audiologist in the major city or whatever will have hookups to musician earplugs, from West Tone and stuff, and they can order them for you. And I really liked the 9 dB filters. I will say the 15 always sounded like too much to me. but the 9s were cool. And I did like wearing them at, more so than wearing them at rehearsals and things. I never got used to that, like when I'm playing. But wearing them at concerts and in loud clubs and stuff, I did like, actually. Pretty cool. Do you feel there's a difference between neck through or bolt on set or bolt neck? Yeah, watch recently, Ola Englund did a video where he plays a set neck version of, I don't know if it's his signature guitar, but he plays a set neck version. Sorry, it was a neck through, I think. Neck through version and then a bolt on. And you can clearly hear like a major difference between the two. And he's just playing them acoustically. And you can hear with a microphone on the, on the guitar, like what the difference between the, the acoustically between the two instruments. I found it pretty interesting. The neck through definitely sounded super solid and more like defined, and then the bolt-on was airier or something and didn't have the same definition, but how that translates to the pickups, I don't know if he did a similar video through pickups or not, but they definitely have a, different qualities. I mean, like set neck guitar versus a neck through, putting in a neck through guitar, the whole neck, which is what that Randy Rhoads guitar is, by the way, that I played the other day in that video. The neck goes through the whole, so it's one piece of wood that goes all the way through the body. The neck is carved out of that, and then there's like wings glued on either side, that kind of thing. And then a set neck is, of course, you got your neck joint in here or whatever, and the neck glues into the body like that. It's different, I don't know how to qualify the difference, or the difference in sound between, say, a set neck and a neck through. I've never, like, for instance, played the same guitar that was a set neck or a neck through. I would just say that in general, the difference probably between both of those designs and a bolt-ons always seem to have a little less sustain to me, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just a different sound. It's like a, the Fender sound. But this is tough too, because a lot of it comes down to scale length, I find. There's a lot of, talk about, set neck, neck through, but scale length is such a big deal. It has this different sound when it's a 25.5, like Fender style scale, rather than a 24 3/4 or whatever Gibson scale is, which is like this softer attack thing and kind of warmer in a way or something. And then you go to the long scale Fender thing, and there's more snap to it and definition, in that way to the note. So it's like the different, like I had a Telly built out of, well, my signature guitar is all Les Paul style woods. Does it sound like a Les Paul? No, not really. It's its own thing, because it's still a Fender 25.5 scale. So the scale length has this snap to it, like a certain, it sounds like that twang of a Fender, even if it's got humbuckers in it or whatever. Does that make sense? And it's part of why I think a Jaguar sounds different than any other Fender. A Jaguar doesn't really sound like a Strat, like in the neck position. So bolt-on neck guitar with a single coil in the neck, just turn on that single coil. It doesn't really sound like Strat to me, and I think it's because of the scale length is short on a Jaguar. Oh yeah. What else? Let's see. What else we got here? That's a nice compliment. You have a great style. Thanks. Where do you shop for? Oh, you mean that kind of style? I thought you meant my guitar style. I don't know if I got a great style today. It's kind of like your average, Uniqlo gray t-shirt. Yeah, but where do you shop for rock and roll stage clothes? Rock and roll stage. Well, that depends what I'm doing. If you're ever in Tokyo, there's a store called Royal Flash. Go to the 3rd floor, find the secret floor, and bring your wallet, because it's very expensive. You'll walk out of there, you'll look like Keith Richards, like it's or Steven Tyler or something. And by the way, those guys shop there when they're in Tokyo. It's an amazing store. So that's kind of the craziest rock and roll clothing store that I know. But barring that, where do I buy clothes from? Like a lot of people during the pandemic, there were sales on, and I went and I bought all kinds of stuff, and then you got nowhere to go to wear it. Be like, I got these great new boots, but I'm just going to Whole Foods again. Damn it, with my mask. It was like, and so it was kind of like, oh yeah, I got this shirt like a year and a half ago. I guess I should wear this. It's like I've never taken this out of the house. Plus, I feel like I gained some weight. It's like, oh, I should have bought this a size up from now, like this home eating pasta every day. And now look what happened. Can't fit into the shirt I bought a year and a half ago on sale. I digress. I like All Saints. I like All Saints clothes for, cool. I just buy their t-shirts and sometimes their jeans and stuff and jackets and stuff. And there's another store called Couples that I love from France, and they make cool, kind of classy rock and roll inspired stuff often. The Couples. I ain't got no scruples. Let's see. Who's this? I just received my Garnet PT signature. Awesome. Look forward to putting it through the paces with my PRS DG30 and HX DA amps. All the best. That's awesome, man. I hope you really enjoy the guitar. I hope it's a good tool for you for years to come. My red is my favorite one, I think. I love them all, but my Garnet red one is a really terrific guitar. What else we got here? What's a great digital audio workstation that you've used that you would recommend for a rookie? Well, I always say to folks, if you've got a Mac, you've already got GarageBand, so you can try and mess around with that and get started. It's not really a full-featured, you can make a whole record on it, but it's not really like a full-featured DAW, but it's pretty cool to get your feet wet and mess around doing some recording. If you like that, then it's very close to Logic. It's just Logic is the professional version, so it goes much further. But they kind of moved GarageBand and Logic closer and closer together over the years, and so one is sort of like it used to be Logic Studio or Logic. It was Logic Pro and Logic Studio, and the Logic Studio was like the light version, and then like GarageBand was a different thing, and then they got rid of all that. And now it's like GarageBand is Logic Lite. And kind of as is iMovie to Final Cut Pro, they've moved them closer together, so they sort of look the same, and you could start on one and then move into the other one as you get more advanced. And so that's nice, the way that works. If you're on a PC, I don't really know, what a lot of folks use, but maybe some folks can comment in the, in the chat about what they like. One thing is that all the companies have all learned from one another, and they're all pretty cool now because of that. Like they've all adopted features from one another, and Luna's nice for UA. It's cool. It's got its own limitations, but also its own strengths, and I love the sound of it. That's one thing. If you're an analog junkie, or you enjoy. There's a lot in there to like with the Neve summing and the API summing. And the API style, sort of, you can have a virtual console that's got, EQ on every channel that's API and stuff. And it just sounds really good. Like the DAW actually sounds great. Like mixing in it is a real pleasure. Recording in it, I find a little bit tougher because I'm just so used to Logic, but maybe some folks can comment though. I know some people like the PreSonus DAW, for instance, that comes with their interfaces. Some people like that. Pro Tools is still, the standard, I think. But a lot of folks use Logic these days. Let's see, what tubes does Sir use? Well, these days it's kind of been like, what can you get? What works? What's available? It's been like that for a little while. But originally, I would say mostly originally when I first started with them, it was JJ power tubes, a lot of JJ power tubes, and a mixture of JJ and Chinese preamp tubes from Shuguang. And I always prefer the sound of those Chinese preamp tubes to the JJ ECC 883, which was always sort of dark to me, but they're really less microphonic. So in some high gain amps, those just worked well, because many times when you're shipping, it's like, what's going to work, what's not going to be, because you don't want to ship amps and get them out there in the world. And then people are like, oh, it's ringing, it's microphonic. It's like as soon as it gets out there. So there's the balance of like what's functional and reliable and what sounds the best is always a balance, I think. So JJ's started to become, at least some of the power tubes, the L34s in particular, started to become somewhat unreliable a little while ago, which was too bad. But then they switched to EH for power tubes, which are really consistent and just work well. The EH EL34, like in the PT100s. So they were using those. PT15, though, the JJ6V6 is the power tube. The amp was kind of designed around that tube. It handles really high play voltages that are really reliable. For whatever reason, that JJ tube is just pretty rock solid as far as tubes go. Long story short, mixture of JJ, the Mike Matthews products that were coming out of Russia, and Shuguang Chinese preamp tubes. I don't think they ever used any Chinese power amp tubes in any of their designs, the Surfhooks. Let's see. Do you prefer 50 or 100 watt amps? I like both for different things, to be honest. I love the punch of 100 watt heads, 100 watt Marshalls and things like that. That design, the headroom is really cool. And then it can be really cool to get that sound and then variac, to lower voltage. And it's like a different sound than going with a 50 watt amp. Now, 50 watt amp, like my 50 watt JMP, if you watch that video I put out yesterday on tubes, it's got a sound. It's never they're always a little more compressed sounding to me. Like the headroom's definitely not quite, it's just compresses and doesn't sound quite as big, but it's cool. 50 watt Marshall is it's just a different thing, different sound that some people kind of built their sound around, I think. And then there's the 50 watt players and the 100 watt players, so, different folks like different things. I think Dave Friedman was mentioning yesterday, Adrian Vandenberg originally said that he liked the 50 watt heads. He was using those. I think also like Michael Schenker, like 50 watt Marshalls. And, certain players were kind of into the 50 watt thing. Let's see here. Eric says, I listened to you because you've done a shitload of different tubes and brands or homework and also a million pickups. I like to listen to things. I just like to listen to things. I guess I have. Through over the years and stuff. I find tubes really interesting. So I like to listen to them and hear them all and hear what they do for my own ears, not just like kind of read what people say on the internet. I always like to just put them in and listen to them. And I find that really interesting and always enlightening. And it's just like, just try it and then you'll know, So, but I recognize that's hard for some people and not as easy, if you're not like close to an amp tech or something, it's a difficult thing to do I'm very close to Friedman. So it's like, it's easy for me to get an amp, into the shop and just switch the tubes and stuff. And he's down with doing things like that. He likes experimenting with that stuff. So it makes it kind of easy, I guess, for, like the video I made yesterday to just bring the amp into his shop or whatever and have him put the tubes in, check the bias, boom, I can go back into my studio and then, makes it easy. So pedal switcher suggestion, says John. I have 12 pedals going in the front of an amp and some in the loop. For that many pedals, I think probably, my Musicom would work, the Mark V. You could look at that. I think the RJM really works well for setups where you're running pedals in the loop of an amp as well as some in front. So the RJM, the pedal PBC or whatever it's called, pedal board controller, got a really nice editor and stuff too. So it's really easy to hook up to the computer via USB and then do your programming on the computer. The Mark V has that too. That's what I have on my board, the Musicom. But look at Musicom Lab and look at RJM, and you'll be able to see what's happening. Ryan says, Pete, did you do the fuzz pedal? I didn't. Coming soon. I actually started on a pedal called the Nerve, which is from Scala, and it's sitting here right on my stand. You can't see it, but it's right there. I'm hitting it right now. It's a dual channel drive with a 4-band EQ and kind of a Marshall in a box affair that sounds really good. So I'm working on that, and then I'll do the fuzz. There's a super chat there. I'm going to answer. What we got here? That is from Javier. What's up, man? Happy Sunday. Have you tried the Ernie Ball Paradigm strings? What's your favorite string? I haven't really messed with those. I've tried a lot of the different Ernie Balls. Like the ones I've messed with recently were the kind of all nickel because I was putting them on the Van Halen. They almost go in the opposite way. It's like back to the pure nickel. It's pretty cool, actually. I kind of like pure nickel strings for some things. They do go dead faster, but if you're playing a high gain, I can see why Van Halen liked them. Van Halen, he had like a, bright amps and greenbacks and all that, and kind of aggressive, turning the EQ, everything on 10. But then he kind of liked dead strings and the guitar. It was all a balance, It's all a balance. I feel like he was gravitating towards warmer guitar sound. Like coming out of the guitar was relatively, for a bridge humbucker, getting into the 14K Alnico 2 pickups later on and stuff like that, and dead strings and basswood, like kind of like a lot of warm stuff coming out of the guitar then with a bright, aggressive, punchy amp. So that's all a balance. But so I mess with those. My favorite string is the Primo Slinky from them. That's what I use, 9.5 to 44 gauge. And that's just a standard nickel-plated steel wrap. That's on that string. So basically the Slinkies. Paradigms are supposed to last a really long time, right? I should ask my fella over at Any Ball about trying them. I guess I don't know. I just don't know if they make them in a 9.5. They might, but yeah. I've never heard anyone mention that one DAW sounds better than another. So I was talking about a little bit earlier the difference between, say, Luna and, so Luna, what they did with it that's different is they have built-in Neve summing as well as tape sim on every channel. So you can turn on a Studer tape simulation as well as Oxide, which is their own tape simulation plugin. So either the Studer A800 or Oxide, and you can put that on whatever channels you want. You put it across the whole mix if you want. On every single channel, you can have like a analog tape sim. So that's going to affect the sound. And then there's also summing. So the whole like kind of analog summing thing was supposed to be a thing, like where all your tracks get pumped into buses. So say, for those that don't know what I'm talking about, let's say all your drums, let's say you got your kick, your snare, your overheads, toms, room mic, hi-hat, all on separate tracks, right? 8 tracks or 10 tracks of drums, whatever. You can then take all those and send them to a bus, which means you're going to take all those and route them to a stereo fader. Now you got your whole drum kit on one fader, right? So that's your drum bus. Then you could say take all your guitars, like your hard pan, left and right rhythm guitars, your solos and everything, and have maybe 6 tracks of guitars, right? Or 20 tracks of guitars if you're crazy, 2 tracks of guitars, whatever it is. Take those faders and you route those to another stereo bus. Now over here in the bus section of your board, you've got your drum fader, your guitar fader, and that's like all those tracks dumped into one stereo bus, right? And then you take those buses and they all go to your master fader, stereo 2-track mix. You can control the levels then very easily of the individual instruments without having to, ride 8 faders or 10 faders or something to just get the drums to go up and down. So some people believe that it's better to have those buses in the analog world. And that's what there's actually products out there where, like, out of your computer, you could send out 8 buses, stereo buses. So you come out of your DAW, and this is called summing, where all those buses then get sent to a 2-track fader. One, that's your master bus. And then you take that and dump that back into your computer and print that onto just a 2-track stereo file, right? Hope I explained that clearly. There's folks that think that it's better to do that in the analog world, that summing. So you've got, say, 8 buses with your drums, your guitars, your vocals, your bass, synths, other assorted stuff, all on 2-track buses, and all that'll get summed to the stereo mix in the analog world, right? Okay, so literally, Neve and different companies were making these summing units that would do that, for folks using Pro Tools or whatever. So in Luna, they have summing built in that supposedly emulates that analog character of analog summing, and they've got API style summing as well as Neve style summing. And so on your buses, but now we're not coming out of the computer, we're still in the DAW, in the virtual world, you've got your bus faders, and you can have as many of them as you want, and you can turn on the API or Neve style summing. And it definitely has a sound when you turn it on. You can hear it, So between the tape sim on every single channel, and if you want it, and then the API or Neve style summing on the buses, there's a sound to Luna that the other DAWs don't really have. And that was part of their, I mean, I think they kind of went, we're going to make a better sounding DAW or a more analog or pleasing or whatever sounding DAW than is out there. It'll have a real sort of sonic imprint. So what I did is I did a recording I had a recording session that I did in Logic, and I had all the tracks. It was just small. It was like maybe 12 tracks of stuff or whatever. And I thought, okay, let me take this and I'll just bounce out all these files as waves right out of Logic, kind of pulled all the faders up to 0 dB or whatever, bounced everything out. And I've got all my wave files now, and I'll pull those in Luna, and I'll do a mix in Logic, and I'll do a mix in Luna using the tape sim and the summing, and I'll listen to both. And when I did that, I was like, oh, wow, it actually really sounds great, like in Luna. It just sounded warmer and more in your face and glued together and all the stuff that I really like about analog. So that was, right when Luna came out, I tried doing that. And that was the main thing for me. It was like, oh, wow, I really like mixing in this. It sounds really great. Now, some of the other stuff about it, I find difficult. There's a few things like MIDI and stuff. And I haven't tried it for a little while. So maybe they've tackled some of that stuff. Little things like when I'm programming MIDI information, like my drums, I spend a lot of time programming drums and changing the velocities of the different drums. Like sometimes, I find like I use Superior Drummer 3 for a lot of my drum tracks when I'm making these demos you guys hear. And a lot of times I find I'll use the many of the beats that it comes with, or the grooves and fills and stuff, and I'll assemble those into a song. Well, then I got to go through many times and like change the velocity of individual drums, because I'll pick up drum kit that maybe has more aggressive cymbals or overheads or something than, like, who knows what they were listening to when they were programming these grooves and stuff, pull up a different kit. It's like a different session on a different day in a different studio. So sometimes the levels can be all over the place. So you got to go through and vary the crashes are way too loud in this. And sometimes it's not pulling down the overall fader of, the crash cymbals within the drum plugin. It'll be literally going in on the grid, on the MIDI grid, and pulling down the level of how hard those hits are velocity wise, like the aggression that the drummer is sort of virtually hitting the cymbal with, right? Is this interesting? I hope so. Hope you're not bored out there. But anyways, I spend a lot of time doing that. It's a big part of, I get a lot of compliments on my drum programming. People are like, how do you do your drums? How do you make it sound? One of the things that's one of the big things I find I got to do is go through and really listen to the velocities of the individual hits and spend some time making sure that they're not too loud, too soft, whatever, and that the kit sounds really balanced and real. It makes it sound more real when you put that time into your drum programming. How's this relate to Luna? I found that difficult in Luna. That was the only thing. Going through and doing the velocities in Luna was much more difficult, at least a year ago when I was, experimenting with it, than in Logic. So maybe they've changed that now, because as a DAW, it's always a work in progress, and the UA people are really good about feedback and about changing things and updates and stuff. So I should go back and investigate and see if it's different now with the latest like updates and stuff to it. But mixing in it, what a pleasure. I mean, it sounds, especially for rock. I've talked about this a lot with Tim Pierce. He has this feeling that, part of the reason why dirty guitar and maybe rock isn't as big of a deal. I think there's a lot of reasons, why, and it's come back a little bit. We got like Wolf Van Halen out there and different rock bands and stuff, and punk pop has come back, and you hear guitar and music a lot now than maybe 5 years ago. But that said, dirty guitar and the sound of kind of distorted guitar in the digital world, he kind of feels like was sort of like grating on people. Like on LPs, it sounds amazing, and on old stereo systems and, old car stereos in your Camaro or whatever, that sounded really cool. But as things got digital and stuff, that sound of distortion became harsher on people, or, you know what I mean? Like, and he has this like feeling that it's like in the digital world, it's not as pleasant to listen to. It's not as appealing as it once was. I think there might be some truth to that. And so anything you can do to kind of smooth that out, and the Luna DAW really has that, like, it's kind of really pleasing sounding. So anyways, Zed says, any of those last forever strings are harder on your frets. I think that could be true. Unless you have stainless frets, I wouldn't go there. I found that with the Cobalt strings, and then I heard that Cobalt, like, whatever, there was these Ernie Ball Cobalt strings and stuff, but I heard that Cobalt causes cancer, and I was like, if I use these strings, is that bad? If I'm you know, because I liked the sound of the Ernie Ball Cobalt strings, and I thought they did actually sound different in a sort of noticeable way. But then I heard that, and I was like, ugh. And the other thing I heard about them was that they chew up frets real fast. And so I think there's some truth to that. You know, the harder the string and the more, you know, they can tend to be hard on frets. That's true, especially if your frets are nickel, you know, as opposed to stainless steel. So there's something to that, you know. Do you ever run boost pedals in the effects loop? Not per se, but I have done things where, like, say in my Strymon timeline, one thing that people may or may not know is that you can change the output level of patches in the timeline. So there's been times where, like on my solos, say you're using an amp that's only 2 channels, and you're using a timeline in the effect loop. You can actually bump up the level of a patch using the timeline to, you know, be +3 or +4 or something like that. And so when you go to your solo sound, it kicks out more level going into your amp. This is kind of a cool trick if you haven't tried it out there. Let's say you got a DSL 50 or something that's got 2 channels, and you got it set up for you know, a clean channel and a dirty rhythm channel, and then you go to your solos and you're like, oh, it'd be nice if I'm hitting a pedal in front for more gain, but I don't get more volume. How do I do it? Well, a timeline in the loop of the amp, you can actually bump up the level. So that's one thing I've done before, is use that to but I haven't had like a, you know, clean boost in the loop and done that stuff. But you can do it as long as the amp's pedal level and stuff, and it, you know, takes pedals in the loop well, that'll work. Arthur says, because coffee ain't gonna happen on its own, and he sends me a super chat. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Delicious. It's 1:10, folks. I'm gonna go till about another 35 minutes or something like that, till about 1:45. That's my plan. Thoughts on steel versus brass bridge posts? I got a little bit of experience with this. Sometimes I'm like, what the hell do I know? I don't know. Like, I don't know any more than anybody. But then you guys ask me questions. I'm like, no, I did do that once. It was 15 years ago. But I ordered a set of case-hardened steel pigtail bridge posts for, at the time, I had a 57 Les Paul reissue, R9. And anybody remember Pigtail? There was this company that would make stop tail style, you know, for Les Paul Juniors and things, style bridges, and you could order bridge posts from them. And anyway, there's probably other folks out there doing it now, but case hardened steel was the buzzwords of the day back then. It was like supposedly the bridge posts on the bridges that they were using, these things, on the tailpiece, these on Gibsons of the day, I don't know what they are now, but back then they were steel posts but brass inserts, so the thing that goes into the body that it screws into, and the brass and steel, it wouldn't be as, you know, resonant as, say, case hardened steel with the steel inserts and the steel posts. So I ordered some, and you know what? Okay, the first thing that I noticed was when I took the bridge off of the Les Paul and then took the tailpiece off and then screwed these out, the screws in the inserts that were stock on the guitar seemed to have some play. Like, you know, they wiggled a little as I took the, you know, they weren't like, you know, there's a little bit of play in there. The what we call it, the tolerance was not super tight on it. So that's one thing I noticed. I had the old post, you know, pulled out, put the other ones in, and when you put in those pigtail studs, they were like solid in the post, like, and the engineering was like really, the tolerance was tighter. So that was one thing. Like, and I was like, well, that's got to be a good thing. Like those posts making contact with the inserts, there's a real connection there, and the more kind of connection and everything you can have in your guitar, that would stand to be more resonant and all that, I thought. And then when I strung it up, I was like, I think this guitar is louder now. And I really thought it seemed more resonant and more, you know, like it just had more. So I think there's a thing to that, you know. Yeah. I don't know. You know, reissues now use all steel, whereas Gibson supposedly use steel tailpiece studs and brass post wheels. Yeah, I don't know actually what. That's a good question for somebody like Gil or Leo Scala or something would probably know what Gibson used. But I thought they were supposed to be steel in the 50s and 60s. That was part of the thing, and then they'd moved to brass, and it was different. But maybe I've got that wrong. I'm just not sure. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. What else we got here? I'm going to go down to the end of the chat, and let's see. What are you guys talking about? All kinds of things you guys are talking about. Back in the 90s, Mike Soldano built me a box with a pot that I placed in the loop of my SLO, worked great as volume boost for leads. Yeah, Scott Henderson has a similar thing. Just a volume pot where it's like having another master, really, where you can just do that. But you could use a lot of different things to do that. Like clean boosts and things. Although that's a little bit more electronics, I think that the idea with the pod is just that you could attenuate with it, and then switch it in and out. And would just be like having another way to just control level. Yeah. What else we got? Let's see. What is my favorite chord progression? I don't know. Maybe. How about that one? How killer is that? Mr. Page, right? This kills me. The A to E flat diminished or whatever the hell it is. E minor, D major 7, C major 7, and I mean, come on, that is like, if we can write one of those. Ooh, man. Yeah, so great. What else we got here? 10 years gone. Yeah, that's some good stuff. That's as killer as it gets. I agree. That's about as killer as it gets for chord progressions, Cashmere is pretty great. Stealth Parrot said Cashmere. That'll do, says Atomic Punk. It's so beautiful, that, I mean, the Rain Song, I mean, he wrote some that whole thing, there's no vocal on top of it because there doesn't need to be, and some of the greatest Zeppelin stuff, I love Robert Plant, he's amazing, but some of the greatest Zeppelin stuff, and maybe testament to Robert, is he knew when to lay off, because it was like, this doesn't need anything else. The Rain Songs, there's a lot of open space in the Rain Song where there's no singing, no melody, because there's these beautiful, it's just the piece of music, it just stands on its own, right? And maybe that's part of the genius of Zeppelin, is that, a lot of it is kind of instrumental and really gorgeous. So this is the thing that, if I've got to pick on modern bands that pull from, I don't know, be it like, I don't want to bag on people because I love that people are playing rock and all that, but the Greta Van Fleets and the Dirty Honeys of the world and all that stuff, do your Rain Song. Do your give us some 10 years gone, give us some, if you can get into that realm, and just enough with the kind of the only the that's my only criticism. Don't just take the lowest common denominator. It's the magic of Soundgarden, by the way. And I heard Chris actually articulate this in an interview, and I thought, that's it. He's like, what we pulled from Led Zeppelin was different from what a lot of other bands pulled from Led Zeppelin, and when you listen to a song like Burden in My Hand, or a song like Zero Chance off of Down on the Upside, listen to that song and you'll hear when I talk about songs like 10 Years Gone, and that's them pulling from Zeppelin in a, they're really in a rich way and giving back. It's the same thing like people pulling from the Beatles. I love Oasis now, actually, and I love Noel Gallagher, and I think he keeps getting better and better as a songwriter. And Liam actually is doing cool stuff. But what people compared them to the Beatles in the 90s, and it's like I was always like, really? Like, okay, there's that one song, the F major 7 at the beginning. That's okay. That sort of sounds like the beginning of Let It Be, but that's not really like pulling from the Beatles like XTC did, where, like that level of, listen to a song like the creativeness of like, some of the stuff on Oranges and Lemons, or Scarecrow People, these songs by XTC. It's like really giving a lot back. Like, yeah, maybe they were influenced by that. You know what I mean? So anyways, I find that kind of interesting, fascinating subject. But what Soundgarden pulled from Led Zeppelin versus a lot of other, the kind of the basic, folks that copy and do some modern version of that or whatever, where it's just a lot of G's and C's and D's and stuff. But it's like, no, give us the 10 years gone and the, that's that stuff. If you're going to pull from it and just do, just kind of take off and do your own thing from that. I don't know. Yeah. Have you ever played this is the Ibanez Paul Gilbert model? I don't think I have really. Maybe in Japan briefly picked up some. I don't know, but they're kind of an RG feel, the thinner neck and stuff. And the one Ibanez guitar that I kind of really like over the years, and I've played a few of them in Japan. I always pick them up and I think they feel pretty good. Is actually the Satriani guitar. So it's got a humbucker in the bridge and then a single in the neck that's like a rail. And it's the sort of swoopy body, it's like a Strat style body, but it's got rounded edges or whatever. That's that guitar. The neck on it's a little more my speed. It's a little more like a 60s feeling neck on his guitars, although with a flatter radius and stuff. But I like those. That's the one that I kind of dig. I've never really been into the RG sort of the sharp horn body, which is on the Paul guitar. And the Steve Vai guitars and stuff, and I love those guys. But that particular the sharp, pointy cutaway thing, I didn't dig as much as some of the other, the rounded, like I say, the Satriani and stuff. This is me. Just for your cider consumption, thank you, sir. Going to Toman for a few days, saying hello to them. Say hi for me, please. I love those Toman folks. I'd love to get over there again and do another Toman event. They do that, it was a little bit like GitCon that I went and did there and made some videos and stuff with like my friends Daniel from Gig Rig and stuff, and That Pedal Show and other folks, Paul Davids, and the fun people I got to hang with over there. Chris Buck. It was fun. Great events. Toman's really, it's a beautiful setting. They're there right by this beautiful pond, and, you can go and, they've got a store in the Toman facility and stuff that you can go play all these guitars, and they've got a room full of tubas and a room full of pianos, and it's an amazing place, really. It's not more than a music store. So I had a lot of fun there anyway. And you sent me another super chat. Thank you, sir. Stop that. You need to save your money. You're going on a trip. There was one super chat here that I missed, I think. I'm drinking so much coffee here. I got a pee soon. That's okay. I can make it another 20 minutes. Sorry, that was too much information, but, stream of consciousness. Randy Price says, hey, Pete, I own 17 guitars, and pretty much all of them are Strats and Super Strats, aside from my Music Man and Wolfgang. Talk me into buying a Les Paul. Yeah, dude, get a Les Paul. You deserve it. The tuning will drive you crazy, but it's a great thing to have, a nice Les Paul. Or, an SG, maybe. I love SGs too. I was talking about SGs with John Surr yesterday. They're such cool guitars. I'd love to have a 61 or 62 or 64, SG with a nice wide neck and that. If you get one with the right neck, they're just amazing. So Richard was asking about this guitar. This is a Leo Scala guitar for those that joined after I was talking about it. This is called an Underdog, so it's a unique handmade guitar by a luthier here in LA named Leo Scala, great guy. And this guitar has his pickups in it, just a one-off set of pickups. I think he described the bridge as being 57, I think it's Alnico 2. It's got an offset wind and all that good stuff. And then the neck is an Alnico 4 in this guitar. So, and it has what I like about my Thornbuckers, actually, really similar, just a big telly PAF-y kind of thing going on. Yeah. Okay. What else we got here? Chris says, I don't think people have an idea of how deep Soundgarden's background was. I would agree with that. They were huge into Captain Beefheart. Yeah, they were equal parts Led Zeppelin, punk rock, and then also some really, Chris had a lot of influences, and I think probably all the guys did. It's a little like, the bands then, they were so, like Faith No More was another one that had obviously really all over the map, as far as the influences go, with the kind of, you got your metal guitar player, but then you got, it was just like, that was a great thing about the 90s. There was a lot of, anything kind of went, it's actually a little like that now. If you're, I think that rock needs more of that going on right now. That kind of anything goes, because you hear it in hip hop, you hear it in like different styles of music, where it's like, anything goes. I was talking about this with somebody last night, actually, a little party I was at, that you can kind of, it's almost expected these days to just kind of have, genre bending, kind of like, just like throwing whatever at the wall. It's, I don't know. Why not? It's like, you don't have to stick to any kind of formula anymore, really. You can do what you want now. Skylarking is great. XTC album, very Beatle-like. I would agree with that. Maybe the most Beatle-like. But you know what I mean? A friend of mine once said to me years ago that they gave a lot back. Like, they might have borrowed from the Beatles, but they gave a lot back. Like, and kind of went in their own. And that I would agree with. And I feel that way about Soundgarden, as they relate to Led Zeppelin. Sure, they pulled Burden in My Hand as a, so there's some very Zeppelin-y kind of stuff going on. But, and with heavy riffs and stuff like that. And but man, they always, there's always a real unique bent with Soundgarden that they would do. That was so cool, so will rock ever really come back? Well, if somebody does something like that, but it has to be that creative. That's all it takes, It has to be not sounding like your grandpa's music or whatever, They have to, like Soundgarden, when they came out in the 90s, had they sounded too much like the stereotypical Led Zeppelin, then it would have been more like a lot of the stuff that we heard in the 80s, where they kind of played a heavy riff over and over or whatever, and then sang some bluesy vocal on top, right? Well, Soundgarden didn't do that. They had like, first of all, their look, they got like the metal god kind of singer or whatever. And then, kind of like Matt looked like a college student back there on the drums, And so they had this thing where they would throw you off with like, what are these guys, with the look. And then just musically, they were pulling from, so many different, that's what it really comes down to, is I think it's got to be a little bit outside of the, I think Jack White, in his own primitive way, was pretty successful at, like, he talks about it, and it might get loud, where he's like, I was, with all the fashion and the guitars and the, Meg, and like the just being a two-piece and stuff. I was just trying to distract you from, I was playing this, and he holds up the Sun House album, where it's like he was basically playing blues, like kind of very primitive blues. But he dressed it up in such a way that it seemed very fresh and unique. So whether or not you like him, it's like, that's really brilliant, like, I think, and that's what it'd take for rock to I'll give you an example. This is coming straight from the horse's mouth, from Chris Cornell. I was talking to him once about a band, and I won't mention the band, but the band was definitely a cool rock band, but they had that kind of throwback sound. It sounded like the 70s and stuff, and a heavy kind of rock sound. And they had a look that where they maybe could have walked right out of 1973. And he said in a very nice way, he was like, yeah, I just, he's like, that whole, like, the look and the kind of the it looks sort of very like they're trying to bring back an era or something. He wasn't really into that. He was way more, but you could borrow from the music of, the same way the Beatles did, right? The Beatles with Paul McCartney's influence. Obviously, there's a hell of a lot of vaudeville going on in the, in his songwriting and stuff. But the Beatles dressed it up in their own way that nobody had ever seen before. They weren't trying to look like, something from the 40s or something, So, which when you think about it, 40s to the 60s is even further away than we are now from, say, 70s to the 90s. It'd be like in the 90s trying to do something that was throwback look to the 70s. No, they weren't going to do that. They were going to dress it up in their own way and look like something that you'd never seen before. I don't just mean fashion. It's partially fashion because rock, it's show business and all that, but it's musically, you can draw from those things. But if you it's like, we're going to wear an influence on our sleeve a little bit here, but we're also going to mix it up with this sound, like something else going on, and, dress it up in a slightly different way. And you're not going to notice that. It's just going to be cool. That sounds sort of familiar, but it's totally fresh at the same time. That's the thing, that's the way that rock comes back. If, it has to be, so, Paul says Cornell was way too cerebral. He was Chris Cornell. He's one of the greatest singers of all time. And one of the, he made the Sgt. Pepper of the 90s with Super Unknown. So what's way too cerebral? No, he wasn't. He was really awesome. Yeah, he could. By the way, he could be cerebral and then be totally like total goofball and like completely like off. Like he could act like a 12-year-old at the drop of a hat. So believe me, I saw it happen many times. So anyways, he was definitely brilliant. Francisco says rock is gone. You don't really think so. It'll just come back as something else, where it's like, there's still some great stuff out there. It's just more fragmented now, and there's a lot more choices. So it's like, rock's not gone. It's just, it's taking a little breather, and if anything, it's made a bit of a resurgence in the last few, hey man, I saw this, I've been out recently as, Britt Bowman's playing drums with this band called Roll the Serpent. And they're on tour with this guy, Grandson, right now. And Grandson is like, there's plenty of heavy riffs in his music, but he's also got a heavy EDM element in his music, but there's some stuff that is, there's a definite, I don't know how to describe his music other than it sounds like Nirvana, punk rock meets EDM meets Eminem meets, and he can sing. He can really sing. So he's not just rapping and stuff. He is at times, but he's also singing great. He's melodic, and there's some stuff in his music he's got a guitar player and a drummer up there, and they're slamming at times, and it's cool. It's just, if you define rock as being what we're used to, like, oh, it's got to sound like Van Halen or something, then maybe not, but, I think that Muse is underrated as musicians. Yeah, I would agree with that. I think Muse is great. We played gigs with them. Going back, I played more than a couple times with Muse when I was with Chris, and they were amazing. Really great. I don't think Rick ever left. I think you meant rock. Saw Slash in Nashville the other night, and it was sold out. Same thing with Mammoth. It's just a little more niche now, and the venues might be a little smaller, but hey, probably the biggest tour of all last year was like Guns N' Roses, so they play stadiums still. So I don't know. It's out there still. Or Journey, there's still so much interest. Those guys play arenas, right? Sometimes football stadiums when they play. It's like there's still that interest with folks that, and then as far as the new music goes, there's Mammoth, there's Wolf, and then there's also, like I say, like this fella Grandson, which has been selling out, like slamming, these crowds I was there. It's like I was the old guy. Everybody there is under the age of 25, and they're jamming to this stuff. So, go out and see some shows, get out of your, go out of your comfort zone a little bit and stuff, you know. And great show, always makes my week. Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Thanks, Peter, and for the super chat. You guys rule. Videos this week. I'm finishing a video for this Nerve pedal, which is a dual kind of Marshall in a box, to my ear anyway, sort of pedal. Exciting one coming up that I got to get done for the end of the week for a really, really cool pedal, but I can't tell you what it is, from a major company. So those two I'll get done this week. Plus this Irvine, I think it's Irvine's fuzz. That's a fuzz I got to do. I've got some other stuff here from other companies and stuff I need to do. Lots of pedal videos to get to. And then also the Classic Rock Show's rig rundown I really need to finish. So Stealth Parrot says Cerebral must have been standing on stage with Chris. Yeah, you know, I mean, I'll never forget those times, you know. I mean, I was really fortunate. So I always, you know, yeah, I felt like I lived. I wish I could have been even more present, you know. But playing a song like "Blow Up the Outside World" with that guy singing, you know, like I can still feel what it felt like, you know, like thinking about it, you know, closing my eyes and playing, and he comes in. Nothing seems to kill me, no matter how hard I try. And I'm playing those chords, and you know, just closing my eyes, and then just like, yeah, man, it was just like time of my life, you know. It was great. Tom Morello with Grandson is amazing. Yeah, did he do a solo or something with them, right? I don't know exactly, but yeah, Grandson's good, man. It's good stuff. Creative, good lyrics, like very sort of Gen Z, you know, a little bit of, you know, teenage angst kind of stuff going on, but on a good high level. I feel like his lyrics are really great. Hey, you want to hear a cool, fun rock and roll band that maybe, you know, or whatever, whatever the hell they are. They're a little bit like punk too. I brought them up before, I think, but check out the Dinosaur Pileup. Backfoot, listen to that song, and listen to Thrash Metal Cassette. Everybody go listen after. Get your rock and roll asses kicked. Thrash Metal Cassette and Backfoot. That's some good rock and roll music. It's rock to me, whatever you want to call it, but it's really fun. Check that stuff out. Okay, nice mood lighting, says John. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. I try and keep it moody around here. My Knees Hurt says I like the earlier Soundgarden better, but probably because it was less produced. Yeah, I mean, it got more and more for sure. Although I feel like on the last album they took a step backwards, maybe from Super Unknown, and it was a little rawer again. Although it's still polished sounding, but they were just improving as musicians. I mean, Soundgarden was a band that I remember Jason Sutter, our drummer in the Chris Cornell band, he said Soundgarden was a band that arrived on Super Unknown. They were definitely getting there on Bad Motorfinger. I mean, you can make like Beatles references to, you know, I think Bad Motorfinger was their like Rubber Soul or Revolver, you know, and then Super Unknown is their Sgt. Pepper's, you know, the grand statement of like, this is like a all killer, no filler, real, like that album's just from front to back. It's like a Back in Black to me of the 90s, you know, it really is incredible, you know. Drew says new rock that sounds good, Cardinal Black featuring Chris Buck. Yeah, I love that stuff too. You know, I don't know if I define it. Would you say it's more rock than blues, you know? Because what I've heard is more I guess it's blues rock, you know, but I mean he's an amazing guitar player. And it's what a sweet dude too. Incredible guitar player. So great. So, okay, I'm going to go to the bottom of the chat. There's a super chat I missed there. Where are you? There it is. I don't think, oh, I already highlighted that one. That rock never left. Right. Okay, so I got them all. I felt sellout Super Unknown, says PD. I don't think so. I think that was like, okay, so Chris, you know, something you should know about Chris is that he often felt misunderstood by the fans. And he actually articulated to me once, I might have brought this up before, but he said to me once, you know, people focus on this one little thing that I can do. And it's a very just one thing that I can do. And I like doing it, but it's only one thing that I like to do. And as an artist, I want to do different things, right? So when you say sell out, if you were like, oh, I want them to do, Beyond the Wheel or whatever, like over like earlier, that kind of sound or whatever, like almost the more Sabbath, and him screaming and stuff. He was like, it was like, all right, this is one thing that I could do when I was like 20, 7 years old or something, or 26 years old. And people keep focusing on that. I want to do other things. He had a lot of interests. So sell out, I don't think so. I don't think that Soundgarden ever sold out. I don't think so. So they were a really honest band that just kind of did exactly what they wanted to do. Super unknown, and they literally wouldn't let the label into the studio to listen because they had total artistic control with their label and they could do whatever they wanted. And they basically made the record exactly that they wanted to make. With the help, I think, of Michael Beinhorn and, giving them somewhat of a, So I talked to Michael once about, he's the producer of Super Unknown. And I talked to him once about the album. And I know there was some tension between him and the band, but at the end of the day, they made this amazing thing and everybody was in the room. So they were all a part of it. And he did mention to me that Chris felt pressure at one point and said, no, I really wish I could just, like, they were having problems at the beginning or starting the record and coming up with ideas and stuff. And then he said, I really just want to write like kind of like, but I feel like this, like whatever he said, but I feel this pressure to do this other thing that people want us to do or that want me to do. And Michael said that he was like, well, why don't you just do exactly what you want to do? Like, don't worry about it. And he was like, really? He's like, yeah, just do exactly what you want to do. Like, do whatever you want to do. And he came in the next day with Black Hole Sun. Isn't that crazy? Like pretty much kind of a verbatim sort of demo of Black Hole Sun. And Michael said that his response was he put it on and he's listening to it and he's like freaking out because he's like, this is freaking amazing. And he's like listening to it and everybody else is kind of like, yeah, it's cool. It's cool. And he was like, is nobody hearing what I'm hearing? Like, this is like unbelievable. And that he got it right away and stuff. And that he, just was like, yeah, there's more of that. Like, and that's, that was his, recall of the way that went down. But, if that's the truth, the way that went down, then he, giving somebody the artistic license to just kind of go for it and not, is an amazing gift, right? You do this live stream every Sunday. I'm out of touch, so I don't know. Yeah, pretty much I do. Without fail, unless I'm traveling or there's a problem of some sort. Personally, I like Super Unknown and Down on the Upside the most. Yeah, I mean, for me too. Those two are the pinnacle. Do you like Fugazi? I don't really know Fugazi. That was Tim Cohen. I missed the boat on Fugazi. So should I listen? Should I get more into it? What else we got here? If I get a Sir PT, will I be as good as you? Yes. Ben says, personally, Black Hole Sun was my least favorite song of theirs. I mean, really? Like, or is it just that it's overplayed? Because it's hard to put yourself in the state of mind where maybe it was the first time you heard it. I can kind of remember hearing it for the first time in the 90s and being like, oh, this is really great. Like this. I mean, it kind of opened the door because it was so creative and kind of Beatle-y and had its own, I mean, the whole, I forget it. Right. Forget it. I should remember this. Okay. Just pretend there's nobody here. Oh, it's a good thing I never did that live. I can't remember the end. Shit. That's so embarrassing. All right, I'm gonna play it next week and I'll have it. It's been years since I played it, but oh man, I can't believe I forget it. The last is. I almost got it that time. Okay, I've got one more chord, and I'll have it at the end. Oh, geez. The dark sound experimenting with odd time signatures in combination with Chris Cornell's voice was really great. They really went a step up on Super Unknown. Yeah, I mean, they were just in the zone of being creative and having that artistic license to do exactly whatever they wanted to do, you know? And he told me about that. It was like, yeah, we kicked the label out of the studio. We wouldn't let them, you know. It was just like a really interesting time in music where there was still a really big record business. It was sort of the old school model still. You know, we hadn't moved to digital and everything yet. And Napster and everything wasn't really a thing yet. And so there was a lot of money in the business to put behind things. But Seattle had taken over and the record people wanted a piece of that. And Soundgarden was the granddaddies and they could kind of do whatever they wanted to do, you know, of that scene. So Chris says, don't miss my super chat. Sorry, I was trying to remember Black Hole Sun. Where's your super chat, Chris Quinn? I'm going to head back and see if I can find it. I wish there was a better way in this software to highlight super chats. Like, because what you have to do is just kind of go all the way back through. Oh, here's one from that I didn't get. Loot 89 says Kim Thale was into punk for sure. He was like, you know, look at him now. He's still, you know, working with Wayne Kramer and stuff, right? Oh, there you are, Chris. Okay. Can you give me some tips and tricks on using my ASI 3D ME? So far, they've been a savior. Cutting bass has made a world of difference. That's kind of what I do. I cut the bass out of the EQ a little bit. Sometimes I'll boost mids if I need to on certain stages. Just, I mean, like a hair on the little EQ. These are the in-ears, by the way, you guys, with the active microphones in them. And they've got an app where you can, you know, on the phone EQ and add a limiter. So I put the limiter at either 99 or 102 just to really catch the upper peaks. And then I'll sometimes cut the lows a little bit. And that's about it. That's all I do. So sometimes the EQ's flat. That's it for tips. I use the limiter though. You know, if you know haven't tried it, you probably should. I think it's good to have on. Sometimes when I go over, you know, close to the drums when I'm playing or whatever, or I get close to the singer and they lean in your ear, you'll hear the limiter like just actively. You know, you're like, oh wow, that would have been really loud had I just, you know, somebody screaming right by your head, you know, and you'll hear it drop the, you know, the volume. Yeah. Okay, what do we got here? What do we got? I gotta go soon, but I'll stay 5 more minutes. Made it for some of the live, says Sessions with Jeff. Let's see. Ben Coombs is mentioning he's got a show tonight live at 8 p.m. Eastern. Ben, my faithful moderator. Good to have you here. You guys are asking about this guitar. This is a Leo Scala Underdog. So I've had this guitar for years. You guys have seen it in many videos. But Leo put a set of his new pickups in it, as well as the pick art on it, so it looks a little different. What else we got here? Let's see. That riff is going to haunt you. Can you talk about? Yeah, I'm going to try it one more time because I know I can remember it. Can you talk about your new signature pickups yet? Not yet. There we go. Got it. Damn guitars. Yeah. Well, on that note, maybe I'll go. Yeah. I should probably split. I've got a birthday thing I got to go to today, and video stuff, etc., etc., etc. But enjoy these live streams, says David Dillmore. I like that. Oops, nailed it. I nailed it. It's true. I did. Thank you. Thanks, man. I'm an all right dude. I guess I'm not so bad as far as, I'm Canadian. My parents were, nice people. They brought me up right. I hope I'm all right. I remember you were touring with Chris and using the G system. Yeah, I got into the G system 2006, and I used it on a tour with Jewel, and then I got the gig with Chris the following year in 2007, and I was G system then, and I had a whole, because I used a kind of a self-made pedal board with Jewel, I think, and then by 2007 I had a whole thing done, a G system board built by Dave Friedman. Yeah. Pete is gaining on 250,000 subscribers. I know I'm close, aren't I? I'm somewhere close to that, which is great. I wish it went faster, but I'll have to make more popular videos if I'm going to get it to keep moving. Stop making super niche videos about EL34s and stuff. Yeah. Jim says I should play more on my Sunday lives and also maybe do a tips and tricks. I like to play occasionally, but I kind of like just doing the random through the microphone thing, because I feel like I miss a lot of questions as it is. And it's like the show is more sort of about, I feel like it's evolved over the, couple of years or whatever into just being about like kind of answering constant queries about things. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I sort of like just picking up the guitar every now and then if I have to reference a lick or something, and then I screw it up, Arthur says I got to go get cat food. I got to do that today too. Thanks for reminding me. Have you ever played a Graco Super Real Series guitar? I've played quite a few Gracos. Actually, Dave Friedman has. Oh no, his is a Bernie, but I think they were like made in the same factory, weren't they? The Bernies and the Gracos. It's like the same guitar. He's got one hanging on the wall of his shop. So I've played a few of them, and there's a store in Shinjuku, if you ever go to Tokyo, that is unbelievable. That has all old Japanese, the Tokais and Gracos and all that stuff, and there's just hundreds of guitars in there, and really cool. There's a vintage American guitars on the floors upstairs, and the bottom floor is all the vintage Japanese vintage, like 80s, 70s, 80s Japanese stuff. But sounds like you're going to pee your pants. Yes, I'm very hopped up on caffeine. I do have to pee, so I should go do that. Anyways, I'm going to go. You guys go get some work done and stuff like that. But this has been amazing. Thanks for being a part of my Sundays every week and all your super chats and stuff. I really appreciate all you being here. And more videos coming this week. And let's just move forward as a species, shall we? Be nice to one another. Have a great week.